Welcome Carlo, Shandon, welcome Con, Debbie, Fiona, Frank, Gary, welcome. Welcome Joe, welcome Matt, Nicolette, Richard, Roger, Tony, warm welcome to you. William, Zoe. We'll give it 30 seconds and then we'll kick it off. And we can get rid of that annoying background music, Daniel.
Yeah, that'll be good, mate. I feel like I was in an elevator.
It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hi, Carlo. Carlo's saying, hi, Daniel. Hope you've been well.
G'day, Carlo. Long time.
Good to have you on this morning. Very good. Let's kick it off. So again, a very warm welcome to everyone this morning to Foundstone Conversations, and a very warm welcome to Daniel Agostinelli, the Group CEO of Accent Group. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Great to have you on board. I believe it's an exciting day for you today. Busy day. You're a bit on.
Very busy today. We have two refitted and new looking stores opening today, and we have 3 brand new stores. So it's a strong day for us, given what's going on around the world. We're quietly happy and pleased that we've been able to execute, and hopefully they'll trade well. But they look fresh and they right on point. So let's see what they do.
Fantastic. My wife and I were at Chadstone on the weekend. There was I must say there was probably a line outside of I think every one of your stores. It was interesting to wander by and see the kind of the activity and the energy happening there.
Yeah, it's a great culture in a good part of the segment, being fashionable sneaker shoes. It's a big growth market worldwide, has been for a while, and we're very pleased. And I hope, Andrew, you were lining up as well and pulled out your wallet.
We did. I wanted to go through the experience of the store, and I also went. I know you'll be talking about it a bit today about the hero application online, some of your websites. Yeah. I had a pretty wonderful experience on that, actually. The whole, you're on the Athlete's Foot website, live chat, video I know you're going to be going through that a bit, so looking forward to that. So just a brief bit of context to the participants today. So Foundstone Conversations is really, it's conversations with business leaders. We thought there wasn't really enough. There's a lot of academic and theory stuff out there, but we're bringing leaders on like Daniel to really hear from their story, their own personal story. Today, we're going to hear of Daniel's story right from the start of him founding Sanity Music back in the day to now then running Accent Group, a billion-dollar organization. So today, you'll hopefully learn a bit from the conversation. We've got a Q&A open here and a chat line as people have started. So we'd love for you to put any questions as we go along. So feel free to put them in as we go along, and we'll do our best to answer them. Daniel, I know November's also pretty busy from a cyber month. There's been a fair bit of activity and news around that in the media.
Absolutely. November is now fast becoming, for anyone involved in the digital business, as strong as a December. In effect, it's pulled the sales forward. Given we've all been cooped up, or at least in Victoria we have, I'm not so sure how strong it'll be this year, because people simply want to get out and shop. But we're experiencing pretty solid sales to date. The big days like Black Friday and so on are still yet to come. But overall, it's been a good start for us. But the good news is that our stores are holding up very, very well nationally, which is and New Zealand, I must say. So it's been quite an eye opener to see customers' shifts.
Very good. So just before we get into the main content, there was 2 questions I wanted to kind of kick it off with. One was, there's been a few questions sent in beforehand, and one was around what are the major shifts you've seen in the market, both in the retail sector but in the broader market and the economy you've seen over the last 12 months?
Well, obviously, like I assume everybody on this call, we were all disrupted in a major way. Whether you had kids at school or you didn't, or you were simply, stood down, or you were working from home, whatever it may be, everybody was disrupted. And one of the biggest shifts was that businesses that were able to and had invested early, we were one of those. We would hope. It really allowed us to learn how to adapt in the space that we were given, I suppose, because we couldn't sit there and do nothing. We had to somehow continue to pay the outgoings at least. So pretty tough time, like most. But I think Australia and New Zealand has been pretty resilient, given what's occurred. People still spent money online. People still did what they could to adapt. In most cases, many people were at least working from home, whereas that didn't look too well or able to be done, around the 29th of March when we had to close down. So overall, I think we should all be fairly pleased, given what's occurred and the challenges we've all faced. So I'm sort of optimistic.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I know that you're going to be taking us through a bit in terms of the digital kind of journey you've been on, and the way I see it is, I think AXA Group were a lot more prepared than some other businesses out there, retail and broader, with having the digital capability already set up. So I think part of today, there's a few questions we've got, in terms of how you've built that and how you're continuing to maintain that, which will be really interesting. And the other one, which is kind of an interesting one, was around mindsets. So, with so much uncertainty this year, you mentioned March, April, when the lockdown hit, some people were scrambling. There was a question that came in, what was your mindset in terms of how were you thinking about how to adapt to the uncertainty in the current year? And then how would that mindset perhaps even compare to back in the day when you were building businesses from scratch? Be good to hear your thoughts around that.
Well, I think once again, we were faced like everybody else. I mean, at one stage, I actually didn't believe we were going to close down, because it's certainly not something we'd ever trained for. We never actually knew how to shut down. We're about opening.
Yeah, right.
And in order to shut down, there were many things we had to especially costs and so on. But the mindset was, one of defeat, one of, I may go as far as saying despair, particularly around the 27th, 28th of March. And already by that period, we'd already had very, very soft sales. So things were not looking great at all. And there was a couple of nights there at 2 a.m. that I found myself, completely wide awake thinking, there's 5,000 people this group employs. How are we going to keep everyone employed and pay them and pay all of our rents? And we had the best part of $85 million of stock, sailing our way, of which we didn't need because we couldn't, we simply didn't need the stock, couldn't pay for it. Yeah. So it was a very, very scary and challenging time. And I think, very proud of us at Accent, but many other people I know, and many of you on this call, I'm sure, that found a way to adapt and cancel some orders and do what you can to work with your suppliers, make sure your team was safe and paid. All of those things was a mindset that we were in. And I'll talk a little bit more when we start about what we started to notice almost 7 or 8 days into the pandemic. Yeah,
well, that's brilliant to get an insight, and it's kind of refreshing, to be honest, Daniel, because to hear that as well, because it's a pretty once in a lifetime thing, isn't it? It's kind of refreshing to hear that, you had those kind of reactions as well, because so many people are going through that. There's some pretty senior business leaders like yourself. And perhaps, what we were hearing from some of our customers, they thought they were kind of just in it themselves. So I think it's really refreshing to hear that perspective. I'm going to just share now some of these slides. So Daniel now is going to share these. Just take us through the context of the Accent Group business and also his personal journey as well. I'm personally fascinated to hear more about the early days of founding Sanity Music with the likes of Brett Blundy, and then the journey from then to now. So, Daniel, over to you for a bit of a discussion through these.
Okay, well, thanks, Andrew, and hi to everyone. Andrew asked me to get involved in some of this learning initiative that Andrew and Foundstone are driving, and I obviously obliged. And it's interesting because I really believe that if you guys can learn something from your effort with this session, I'm sure there'll be other sessions that I can learn something from you guys. But I'd like to start today by saying that you know, what we did here at Accent is once we we sort of got hit for six and thought, what are we going to do? This was all around mid to late March, mainly late March of 2020. We come up with the 3 A's, as we called them at the time. And one was that we simply had to accept that this was real and it was here. And there was no point just going round and round. We kind of had to very quickly put down a plan about, well, what are we going to do to accept this and advise our teams of what's happening and so on. The next thing we had to do is figure out, well, how do we adapt? And on that second point, adapt, about 10 days in, we started to notice that our digital sales were exploding. They weren't just doing, 20% up and 30% up. In some cases, we had 300% and 400% up days compared to the same day the previous year. Now, that was not enough to cover all the what we used to get from our stores combined, but it certainly was enough to allow us to at least trade on and keep some income coming through the door, so we could pay not only bills that were prior that were due and payable, but also bills and just general rents and so on that were due moving forward. So we started to adapt in a very in a quick manner, and I've got a group of probably 15 to 20 as I call it, my heavy hitters in the business who drive the remaining 5,000 people. We started to get on Zooms every morning, and we were just coming up with ways to adapt, at the same time making sure that our costs were shut down and that our team was safe. It was one of those sort of revolving discussions that was going round and round, but thankfully we executed well. And then the third point, once we started to get a bit of confidence that these digital sales were solid, we started to see, pre-COVID, we're a public company, so I can share some of these numbers. We were doing, 300,000 and 400,000 a day in digital sales. We started to see well over, $1 million to $1.5 million per day often through that period. And indeed, we clocked in a well over $2 million day, which was outstanding for our business. And that really allowed us to challenge everything we had set up for, not for COVID, but certainly challenge, how do we fulfill all this out of our stores? And we call them dark stores. So our teams were receiving the orders and they were in the stores working on JobKeeper at the time, but at least they were employed and they were fulfilling orders, which allowed us to get through. But the accelerate piece just becomes stronger and stronger for us. So my next slide is, I'll go into a little bit of my journey just to give you some context of what I've done. That photo is a store that we bought called Platypus Shoes some 13 years ago. Ugly poo brown color and all wrong. Terrible location at High Point. But that's the business we started with, and it just allows you to, for those of you that know our stores today, they look totally different to that. But you've got to start somewhere and put your foot in the puddle, so to speak, and get on with it. But so my journey. Next slide here, Andrew. I started my journey working through working in a store called Jets Records. It was a one-store operation in Doncaster here in Melbourne. The guy that owned that store was a guy by the name of Brett Blundy. He just started, that was his first store that he ever purchased. I worked in there as a casual and very quickly learned the trade of what was the music industry. I never played an instrument, but I had a like for music and, you know, nightclubs in those days and so on. So
Yeah.
I sort of fell into it. And I liked it so much that eventually Brett Blundy sold this business and moved to Sydney to start a business called Brows and Things. At the same time, he said, why don't you come to Sydney? I was 20, I'd never been to Sydney. And I said, fine. So we bought a store together in a shopping centre called Miranda Fair, which is in the Southern Shire in Sydney. Great shopping centre. We opened this, we bought a store called Miranda Fair Records. Terrible looking thing, but we bought it on the cheap. We fixed it, and it was a terrific store. On from there, I personally ran that store with essentially no team members. I was on my own. Every single hour of the store, I was there. Friday nights, Thursday nights, whatever time the store was open, I was there. And every cent I had was in this one store at the time. But being a young guy, there's plenty more energy than I have today back then. We then sold that store, bought a business in Melbourne called Delta Music. We built that to about 12, 13 stores. And then we had the Paul Keating recession that we had to have. That knocked us for 6 because I'd never been through a recession. And indeed, the business was losing money. In true culture, as Brett Blundy and I call it, we adapted and we actually put more money into the business, even though we were losing money. And we created a business called Sanity Music Stores. Sanity Music Stores was an instant hit. We actually used to sell apparel in these stores. In the strangest manner, the apparel actually never sold. It was a disaster, but the music side went absolutely nuts. And we started to see incredible growth out of these stores that looked a little bit more, the word I guess is funky compared to other music stores. For those of you that are my age, you'll recall a business called Brashes. They were the dominant player, which we ended up buying about 6 or 7 years later. But essentially, we got Sanity up to 248 stores, I think, when I left. We listed on the stock exchange, and I got on with moving my way out of that business and getting onto something different. An interesting thing was going on in those days that people that I was associated with and you know, the music industry in general, wearing these funny looking shoes. They were called sneakers or trainers, depending where you come from. So I personally bought a business called Ghetto Shoes. Brett Blundy again joined me, and we grew that business to 42 stores and we sold it. And that was a great day. But effectively a business called Accent Group was one of my suppliers, and they were supplying me brands like Skechers, was also supplying me Vans and Dr. Martens, of which we still have today at the Accent Group. So my relationship was great with the Accent Group, and the guys asked me, the directors at the time asked me to join them. I did, with an equity position, and we effectively added retail, which was the real reason they wanted me to join. And today, close to 13 years exactly, we've gone from 0 stores to 558 stores. So it's been a hell of a ride. These are not store within stores; they're standalone stores across 18 banners, and I'll get to those in a moment.
I think, Daniel, talking about understanding a business at the grassroots. I mean, hearing, you know, Miranda Fair, you were running that store yourself, and it seems like that now, you know, that there was an article in the Fin Review a couple of days ago, your quote about, you know, you're itching to get out to the stores and see what's, you know, get amongst it and see what's happening. That I think that the quote quote I like that you mentioned. You know, you can either choose to go and go to Sydney and watch the fireworks live, or you can watch them on Zoom. It's a very different experience, isn't it? So it sounds like that you still have that mandate to go out, get amongst the customers to stores at the grassroots.
Well, absolutely. I find it more important than talking to the stock market. Way more important from my point of view. Without customers, we've got nothing. And I'm purely dedicated to the customer first and foremost before I do anything. So I'd rather be in the stores than being in office. That's the way that's where the world I come from. So bit of background about you know, who are we? We're a publicly listed business here at Accent Group. We're a wholesale, retail, and digital business. So we're the true omni-channel. As I mentioned, we're 500 stores plus. We're actually 558 now. We've got a couple opening today, which will grow that. We've got 5,000 team members between our support centres and our casual teams around Australia and New Zealand. And we have a market cap of about 900 million. In our view, it should be higher, but that's what the market cap is. The next slide sort of gives you an example of the brands we distribute. These are all international brands. We have exclusive licenses for Australia and New Zealand. And Skechers, Timberland, Merrell, Saucony, Vans, Dr. Martens, Palladium, Caterpillar, Stance, Sperry, and Supra. I assume most of you have heard about some of these brands. They are the big brands of the world in the sneaker space. Obviously, we can't distribute the brands like Adidas or Nike, but when you include those into a mix, you get to what's on the next slide, which is our retail business, and you can form a great vertical, exciting business, particularly in Platypus, Athlete's Foot, and Hype, where we sell our distributed brands, plus we buy in third-party brands from Adidas, Nike, and so on. But as you can see, that gives you a rundown. This is probably a little bit out of date as it's growing, but we see a ton of runway for us, assuming we can actually execute.
And so New Zealand's been a bit of a growth market. Daniel, that's continuing to be, and broader than that? Is it still the plan?
It's been brilliant, to be honest. Very, very strong in New Zealand. They've come out of COVID beautifully in our view. I talk to many other retailers. Everybody seems to be happy, and we see ourselves essentially doubling at some point. So a ton of growth out there, but to manage all these brands is not easy. So we have to make sure we execute. Yeah, so going along with our mantra of accelerate, from my first slide, through COVID we opened a business called Pivot. This was thought up about a year ago. It took us that long to come up with a name, a market position, and essentially this business is very different and incremental to anything we do. It'll operate in an area that's about $500 million worth of sales in this segment of the market, and this, for us, it's purely value sportswear. We don't pretend to have the latest and greatest Nike in here. We're not chasing that. What we do have is t-shirts, anything to do with sport, shoes, and so on at a price. And we opened this store completely via Zoom. We couldn't get to Sydney. It's in Shell Harbour in Sydney. For those that live in Sydney, it's a couple of hours out of town. And we effectively opened this store with amazing efforts from many people to make this happen. But we've opened it. We now have store number 4 opening, and this was all essentially done through COVID. So we're very, very excited about what we've been able to do. My next slide shows you our very exciting business. This is StyleRunner. This is Armidale in Melbourne. If you haven't been there and you're shopping in the area, please drop by. It's been absolutely stunning for us. The store is actually open now. This is a photo of the hoarding that was up there, but it's in High Street, Armidale. And once again, We bought this business last year. We had grand plans to open a couple of stores. COVID stopped all of that. But again, on our accelerate drive, we said, no, we will do it via Zoom. Amazingly, we've opened this store 2 weeks ago, and it's just been stunning for us. So hopefully that'll continue, and we are already looking for more stores to open around, particularly Sydney and Melbourne soon. My next slide gives you a little bit of a view of what we've done in this space of digital. For those of you that are involved in retail, you know, in our humble view, you know, you got to, we all as retailers have got to start to have excellence in digital, or, you know, we're going to get steamrolled by somebody else. The big players are spending more and more money in this area. And thankfully, we invested in this area about 4 years ago. So we've got a standalone digital team working out of our innovative digital hub here in Melbourne. We have a 3-level building that is totally dedicated to digital. They're an amazing team. And one of the main reasons that we actually executed out of COVID in the manner we did, you know, we've got full omni-channel capabilities: click and dispatch, click and collect, endless aisles, same-day delivery. We've added more to that now. We've now got curbside pickup. We've got all sorts of things that simply continuously are focused on what does the customer want. Our customers don't care about our problems or our cost issues and so on. They'll simply shop with you, and if the experience is not right, they'll move on. So we are very, very dedicated to however a customer wants to execute with us. We will make it as easy and seamless as we can, almost regardless of the cost, because the priority is to keep the customer. We've got a digital marketing team and an agency that drives our production and content. And without doing this internally, you're continuously behind the 8 ball. That's something that we've learned over a couple of years, that if you're going to run this many sites and drive the site, then you need the content, because simply putting up a picture on Instagram, that doesn't cut it anymore. That allows you probably to be good, but you're not going to be great. That was a major learning for us. We've spent a lot of time and effort in the infrastructure. And as we call it, it's our foundation. That sort of has to go in sync with what you're doing at your front end. Otherwise, you're going to grow your front end, and the back end will fall over whenever you achieve the sales you want to. One of our absolute proud areas for our business is that our database is in excess of now 5 million customers. These are active customers that have shopped with us in the 12 months around Australia. And when you have a database of this size, you're talking about most of our customers are 16 to 35. Very, very strong area of the market that spends particularly on fashion and footwear. So it's very, very strong, and we're continuously driving loyalty and opportunities in a major way. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing there in a moment. So we also launched what we're calling Hero. That's on my next slide, and you can move on one more, Andrew, if you may. So Hero is an app that we've introduced again through COVID. So this is all done via Zoom, and a fantastic team to drive this. And essentially, it's no different to what we're doing right now, except for that our team can show you product, its benefits, what it may look good with. They can have a general chit chat with you. And we've got, I think, 45 people now on this app around the country. Some are in stores, some are in offices, and simply customers come to us via a chat line, of which we have 1,000 a day. And they simply say, can I get onto Hero and check out some of your shoes? What have you got in blue? What have you got in white? And our team simply show you product and help you through a virtual app rather than just doing it over chat or email. This has proved to be very, very strong for us. The adoption rate or the conversion rate is far, far higher than we actually get in stores. And once again, we're still learning here. We're putting more and more effort and funds into this area, as we think it'll be a game changer for businesses like ours, or any apparel business, or indeed any business that's trying to sell a product. I think it's the future. So we're certainly pushing that way. My next slide goes to what I mentioned earlier, and that is the database. So these are the 3 new V's that we are driving across the Accent Group today. And it's simply VVV as we refer to it internally. The first one is VIP. We are going to do everything we can to surprise and delight customers more than we've ever done it before. And what that entails will be after many, many new initiatives. It could be simply a handwritten thank you note from a team that when you receive your order at home, there's a handwritten note in there, all the way to, you know, maybe it's a chocolate, maybe it's a gift voucher for your next, all different things that we're going to bring into play. But the drive is to surprise and delight those 5 million customers. And our mission is to grow that database to 10 million customers over the next 18 months. Not easy to do, but we've got some amazing teams that simply understand how to sign up a customer and how to make it worth their while and so on. And it's just proving to be dynamite when you think about, you know, an email bomb that you can send out to customers. You can get your message across very, very quickly, and the conversion rates are almost instant. We have a business called Athlete's Foot that it is so strong that it's almost like an event twice a year, just the VIP push that we have there. The next V for us is vertical. We're in a part of the market that, of course, costs are going up, costs of living are going up, rents are going up, everything's going up. So the only way that we can, 1, continuously surprise and delight customers, and 2, at the same time increase our margins, is to come up with vertical product. And every banner will see something vertical in their banner, whether it's Platypus or Hype or Skechers or Vans, or whichever banner we have, will be playing in this vertical space. Evidence of that will be seen in our stores in December, in either a small way or a large way, depending on the banner. And we see this as a major, major driver of us simply branding product with our banners. We've started with a couple of them being Platypus and Hype, and indeed StyleRunner, and the results have been stunning. As an example, we decided to get into selling our own socks as opposed to other branded socks in our Platypus stores about 2 years ago now. The first day we sold a grand total of 6 pairs, and we thought, oh no, but we persisted. The team simply displayed them better. We got the packaging right, we got the quality right, and I'm very pleased to tell you that last week we sold 12,000 pairs of Platypus socks, which is just amazing what you can do when you've got the whole team going one way and believing in a strategy. And the third one, which I've showed you with Hero, is that we're very big on pushing virtual. Hero is just one part of it, but I think technology is going to evolve more and more as we move forward. And I think any of us that don't invest in this area will be caught out. So we are a business that are certainly looking to expand on these 3 items, VVV. And guys, from me, the only learning that I can share with you is that unless we all surprise and delight our customers, they will find somewhere else to shop. And that means those of us that have stores, they have to be refreshed. There's no point having a store that looks old and you wonder why the conversion rates are low and no one's coming in. Very easy to blame the traffic's down, but as long as you're getting your share of wallet, you need to entice and continuously ensure that customers are being delighted and surprised by something new you have in that store, whether it's a new screen, whether it's a new shop front. In our case, we try and refit all of our stores every 5 years, and at the same time, the same investment is moving across to our digital business as we make our way to 30% of all sales in the future will come from digital, at least from the Accent Group. So hopefully there's some learnings in there for you all. I appreciate your time and your effort to come in. And Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. It's brilliant just to hear that real life directly from yourself, from starting there, Miranda Fair, you know, running the store yourself at the real grassroots, right through to now. You know, we talk about omni-channel. It's been around for a while, hasn't it? But I experienced the omni from being on the Athlete's Foot website to, you know, having one of your staff, you know, the experience of that live chat, the live video, and then I went into the store and purchased the shoes. So it's, I guess we've been talking about that for a while, haven't we? I've heard that a lot from other retailers and broader, but I haven't really had the really good experience. So I think that was, you know, experience it firsthand was a real insight to me that it's happening now. And for those organizations, if you're not offering that, if it's just smoke and mirrors, like you say, if it's just the glossy Instagram shot and there's no back end, there's something missing. To then, you know, talking about, you know, the handwritten note, the VIP service, it's about that actual personal experience. There's just a couple of questions here that we'll go through. So one here from Alan from the Sanity days, in terms of, Alan's asking, you know, how did you really find the key to that business? And it really translates to your businesses now. How did you get inside your customers' heads to really find out what they needed? And has that changed from perhaps back in the Sanity days to now, or you see similar principles?
I think from my point of view, the principles are pretty similar. I think it's just critical that you stay close to the street, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, in my case, I walk around looking at people's feet. What are they wearing? And if you see it 6 or 7 times, you know there's a trend that's starting. We are very big in staying close to trends. We see it as critical, and I don't think that's ever changed for us. Thankfully, in the businesses that we've been in the best part have been we buy final product. We're about to learn the vertical space, but when you're buying final product, there's people smarter than us around the world that have done a lot of the research. And is green going to be the right color, or is it going to be blue? And sometimes you've got to have a bit of trust in those guys, but you've also got to have enough good people surrounding you that are better than you. In my case, I've got many that I lean on towards, well, what is the trend going to do? Is it high heels? Is it low heels? What is it? And, you know, we buy product almost 4 months in advance. So, you know, if you commit 4 months out, you really want to know that you're close to what the trend's going to do. Yeah,
I hear you. Just on that, there's a question, I'm kind of going to the most recent question just on that topic. Richard's asking, you know, with what's happening, kind of were you tempted to pivot to masks, like socks, for example, or did the vision always remain focused on footwear and the core business?
Richard, you're spot on. We certainly did. We saw the opportunity of masks, and 4 of our banners have masks. Our hype business essentially sold out in 2 days. It's a much better looking mask than the one you buy at the chemist. So yes, Richard, absolutely. We pivoted. We are able to pivot anywhere where, as I call it, where the apple falls close to the tree with our consumers. So if it's a cap that is trending, we can put caps in our stores. Even though we're a footwear store, we can do that. We can sell T-shirts. We can sell a lot of dotted lines to what footwear is doing in our space.
Cheers for that. There was Craig just made a comment there in terms of his memory of the Sanity music stores, and he's just making some comments there around, you know, cutting edge store fit outs, good locations, supplier relationships, and lean cost business. So he's just recognizing that. Another question here, Daniel, how do you continue to thread the needle between turning a profit and or investing in infrastructure for the future, such as solidifying dark stores to mitigate logistical issues?
We've got a, rightly or wrongly, we have an approach that we don't really use budgets in the business. We use what we call BIP, Business Improvement Plan. It's the same thing, but there's a slight difference that, you know, yes, we have to be profitable and that's what the market wants, but also we have to deploy cash where we feel it's correct, that's going to return more profits down the line. And that's what we would assume our shareholders want. But there's no point having a budget there that says you can't put the Hero app on, although it's growing in our space, because you're confined by a budget. That would be the wrong way for us to run the business. It's always been the way we've done it, whilst being responsible, that you know, there's money available there for us to do what we need to do to, you know, to continuously improve the business. And I think that word there can probably sum up how to answer that. In our view, we are looking forward at always, how do we continuously improve what we are doing? And, you know, we've got plenty of problems here, like everyone else, I assume, but we're one at a time, we're addressing those. And once we fix those, I'm sure a new set will turn up. But we will continuously deploy cash where we feel there'll be a long-term benefit.
One here from Roger. In your opinion, Daniel, what do stores need to do consistently to ensure customers visit as opposed to the easier option of buying online? I think you've answered some of that already around the whole experience, that personal experience, but would you have anything more to add to that?
Well, as I said earlier, there seems to be this perception that stores are dead in the water. We certainly don't see that. We don't buy into that. Our stores are still comping up, yet our websites have gone, you know, super strong. We feel that 70% of customers, maybe a little bit more, at least in the foreseeable future, will still shop in stores, and forever will shop in stores. But if we're going to have a store that's uninviting, it's not clean, it's got daggy lighting, daggy looking stores, well, the kids are simply just going to run for their lives. And, you know, I mentioned to many that there are a lot of people that have those door counters, so it counts how many people come in and out. And I've heard many retailers that simply say, oh, the traffic's down, that's why no one's coming in. And, you know, I haven't got the heart to tell them, well, look at your shop. Why would I walk in here? I'd rather do it online. So unless you can surprise and delight them, you know, if stores are boring and you're not prepared to invest, I think it's going to be a hard time in the future to get your customers to engage with you, and you might as well do it all online.
Yeah, good advice. And the last one, we've just kind of ticked over time. We'll finish with Con's question from the audience. Daniel, congrats on your results and initiatives in this COVID year. Aside from acceleration of online and digital, what other changes in consumer shopping behaviours do you think will evolve post-COVID?
As we feel there'll be a lot more virtual, that we want to do it virtual, not because of COVID, just because it's it's the new latest buzz thing to do, as the young kids call it. They can see you online, no different to what we're doing here. They can do much more research on their product. Technology is allowing us to tell you more about the product and create a lot more content and excitement around a product. Now, whether that's an iPhone or the new iPad Air that's just come out, and I'm sure you've seen some of those ads on TV, or the latest shoes, it's the way forward. And I think that's going to be a shift that definitely onliners and retailers like us is going to need to adapt to, and very quickly, because the customers are moving faster than we are, and we've got to be able to keep up with that. So that's the only thing I could offer.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've just gone over time. So thank you everyone for putting your questions in. The other ones that were coming through, I can get back to you after this. I'm sure Daniel's happy to answer a couple more. But I think the last one from me, Daniel, just to wrap up on is, you know, we talk a lot about culture. We hear a lot about culture, don't we? You know, organizational culture, or we do anyway. And perhaps it's been amplified in these times. But this culture of innovation, and I've heard you talk a bit about it in other interviews, but is there a couple of things that, you know, if people were asking, you know, how do we foster this innovation culture with our people? Is there any kind of a couple of things that you'd recommend?
Well, I mean, I'm sure every business has got a culture. We believe that we've got a strong culture, or at least 99% of the time. There's always someone who doesn't like the culture. We have a pretty strong culture of can do and make it happen. You know, if you're not here for a customer, you really got to ask yourself, well, why are you at the Accent Group? Because we're a customer-led business. So I often ask that question. As harsh as that may be, I mean, that's what we're trying to run here. Is we're a customer-focused business, and we've got a pretty strong culture. I guess the only thing that the only way I can answer that is that, you know, all of us, including myself, obviously, and I test it all the time, is you need to test that there's actual evidence that what your culture is supposed to be exists in your business. Otherwise, you're not really being true to yourself or your business. You know, I test things all the time in our business, and it's very easy to test. And I actually feel that you can feel it when you walk into a reception of any business. You can almost feel, well,
Yes.
What's the culture in this business about? And you see people walking in and out. And, you know, if there's someone waiting there, waiting to see somebody, and one of my team is walking past, I'd be pretty upset they didn't say, hi, how are you? I mean, it's not that hard to do.
Yes.
Smiling costs nothing, right? So it's those little things that I think matter in an organization. And I try and do my best to drive that at all times.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you again, everyone, for your questions on chat. I'm sure you've got some real good value from that. We've got comments coming in. Alan, Richard, Roger, thanks heaps. Really great to hear from an industry leader such as Daniel. So I think that sums it up, Roger. So thank you for making the time, Daniel. I know it's a busy time of year for you. So really appreciate it. I know everyone's got a lot of value from it. And I think that line you said, you know, stay close to the street, sums it up for me. That's, you know, really being in touch with the market and customers. So thank you again, and have an awesome rest of your year.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great Christmas, I suppose, as we're coming up in the rest of the year.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.